It looks so nice, but it's so cold, so I will try to keep it short. Today's video is a video I wish I had seen about 10 years ago when it all began with my heart stumbles. For those who don't know what this is, even though you probably from time to time have it, but you don't realize it. So heart stumbles are very common and many people have it, but a small group of people like me, and I know there are many people out there who have this as well, they feel those heart stumbles and they feel like your heart stops for a short moment. Then there are some extra beats. So it's like boom, or sometimes there are more extra beats. It's like boom, 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 boom. And you really feel it very strong in your chest, and it freaks you out when you have it for the first time, and maybe also for the 1000th time, because it's really anxiety provoking, and it was very hard for me to cope with the anxiety in the beginning, even or especially because I had a doctor who was not very well, let's say he was not informed about heart stumbles, and he said, well, this is serious, you have to be very careful. Just 1 week ago, somebody on the soccer field, he collapsed and died. So this was really hard to digest for me in the beginning, and fortunately I also saw some other doctors, and this is some advice I can give to you: go and see different doctors, because some are not that informed about this topic. Because in fact the most important information I did not get from doctors at all. It was that you have to take a look at your sleep patterns. And there are several studies out there. You know me, I always take a look at the science if I have a problem. And I saw several studies in which, for example, in one study, women who were working at a casualty department and who had to work in different shifts, and therefore many of them had sleep difficulty. And what they could show in this study was that those who were suffering from severe sleep disorder, their probability of getting palpitations was 4 times higher. And this is just one study. In other studies, it could also be shown that arrhythmias are more pronounced if you have nightmares. And in one older study, it also could show that during your sleep, your extrasystoles, these extra heartbeats, are reduced 3-fold. So somehow sleep seems to be very good for our heart to get into the right rhythm. Now you might say, well, if this is the case, maybe I should only sleep. Maybe I should become very passive, and maybe I should only stay in bed from now on and sleep. Well, this is also completely the wrong way to handle this problem. But as I told you, this was a mistake I did in the beginning as well, when the doctor told me, well, you have to be very careful. Because then I became very careful, and I stayed in bed and I became really passive, and the problem became even worse. And if you are very passive, this is something that plays into anxiety. If you become very passive, you have a lot of time to think about all your problems, and my problem was heart stumbles, and therefore when there was a heart stumble, I had hours of time to think about it, and this made it all worse. So don't get passive, and there is a good reason to do so, because in one study they could also show that when you are active, if you exercise, there is a short beginning when your pulse goes up, when your heart frequency goes up, then there are more heart stumbles. And this is where many people say, okay, I shouldn't do that. Obviously, it's bad for my heart. But if you overcome this first impact of heart stumbles, it only gets better. This is what they could show in the study. At a certain level of exercise, the heart stumbles went down. So, and the scientists were indeed quite surprised by their results, because they could show that at the two ends, on the one hand, if you are sleeping, if your heart frequency is quite low, there are almost no extrasystoles, extra beats of your heart. But also on the other end, if you are exercising and your heart frequency is quite high, then there are also less extrasystoles. So there are really good reasons not to become passive. And also from a psychological point of view, it's very important to stay active, because you show your brain that your body is still quite capable. It can cope with some hard stumbles. It's no problem at all. And in fact, if you take a look at the website of the German Heart Foundation, for example, you can read that most of the time, heart stumbles, palpitations, extrasystoles, most of the time, extrasystoles are not dangerous at all. And you can also find on the same website, and again, I don't know why my doctors did not tell me that. I cannot believe that they were that uninformed. You can also find on the same website that the first reason they name for extrasystoles is bad sleeping. And the second reason is stress. And of course, you also should not take stimulants like caffeine and amphetamines. All that can cause some problems. But the first reason was sleep. The second reason was stress. And believe it or not, those are very strongly linked to each other. If you sleep bad, of course, you get more stress. And if you have more stress, you sleep bad. And this is a bad cycle. And maybe this is something I could also observe on myself. Maybe doing sports, exercise, being active is good for your heart, because it also influences your sleep. Because many studies could show that exercising is good for a good night's sleep. Sorry for the short interruption. This is me realizing that I left out one very important observation. I also observed that after days on which I went jogging, after days I did some extensive sports, on those days the palpitations also were more rare. Sometimes they were even absent for several weeks. So at least for my case, and maybe you make the same experience, exercising is actually very important in the long run. So those are the things that were very game-changing for me. I still have heart stumbles, but there is this clear pattern that it becomes much stronger if I sleep bad. But if I adjust my sleep patterns, it all gets better. So those are the things that really helped me. And maybe you have other observations, and I would be very grateful if you could post them in the comments. And the last thing I want to mention is how to cope with the anxiety. The first one I already named. It's staying active, doing sports, exercise, because this shows your brain I can still do everything. There's no problem with that. And the second thing is cognitive reframing. There are also studies with people who are suffering from heart stumbles, and cognitive behavioral therapy, cognitive reframing can be very helpful. So if you have a heart stumble, you can also do this if-then plans. If I have a heart stumble, you can tell yourself, well, I know it feels bad at the moment, and sometimes it can really feel very shitty, and you can tell yourself, well, I know it feels bad, but many people have it and it's probably not dangerous, and in a few moments it will be gone again. So this cognitive reframing is the first step. But the second step, and this is what is for me even more important, is that you refocus your attention to other stuff. So for example, for me, it's like talking to friends or reading publications, scientific papers. This is something that usually calms me down as well. Or maybe reading a bachelor thesis from a student. But for you, the activities probably are completely different. But it's very important not to ruminate about your heart stumbles, because there are numerous studies out there which could show that ruminating usually make things much more worse, and usually rumination is a good way to get into depressive moods. So I really hope I could help you with this video, and if it just began in your life with the heart stumbles, I know it is really shitty and it takes some time to habituate to this damn feelings in your chest. But after 10 years, I can tell you it is possible to live with it. And there are also very effective ways to influence the number of your heart stumbles. That's it for today. I wish you all the best, and maybe we will see you next time.